Every town has its moments and every street has its story. Here, on Maple Street, things are odd and events are unfolding. The devil is marching down. You'd better beware and be cautious and watch your step and enjoy your stay and enter the archives.
I was involved in one of the defining tales of Maple Street. As cliché as it is, it started with one of the oldest plays in the book, The Things Men Do to Impress Women. Now, the man in this situation wasn't me. My friend Hughes was the lucky scoundrel in this particular romance. I was just a third wheel, an associated party. A role I commonly found myself in when it came to my relationship with Hughes. A loyal tag-along on his drunken quest for love, upon which we found ourselves frequently in his favored bar, adding to his ever-growing tab when he promises he'll pay for the drinks this time. At the beginning of this event, we met in my apartment. Hugh stood in front of my full-length mirror, admiring himself in the tidy white dress shirt he'd recently gotten back from the cleaners, attempting to decide between a pair of ties he borrowed from my wardrobe. I didn't understand why he put so much effort into his appearance at the beginning of the night. I knew by the end of it, stains from his sloppily handled drinks would completely ruin whatever he chose. Not that it really mattered in the end. It was never his appearance that scored him points with the ladies. He was a rather large man, both vertically and horizontally, and his features were rather average. But the moment he opened his mouth, his audience was enraptured. It got him places, whether he wanted them or not. His charm outshined anything I had to offer, save my wealth. I suppose that's what drew me to befriend this fellow from the other side of the tracks. He had a personality money couldn't buy. Hughes chose the crimson tie, fumbled as he put it on, grabbed his coat, and we headed out the door. Within moments, we arrived by cab at the watering hole, our favorite booth in the corner behind the pool table, the perfect spot for Hughes to scope out the crowd should one ever form. There wasn't too many folks in the bar so late, bit past midnight. Lord only knows the sort of creatures that lurk about past the witching hour, poor souls seeking to drown their thoughts with a frosty glass of oblivion, and those looking to take advantage of the wasters. The rumbling of the train passing by was a signature feature to this little bar on Maple Street. It added to the atmosphere of creaky wooden floorboards and the ever-present mist of dust and dirt that blanketed the room. At least the drinks were cheap. The night began as most nights did, but all suddenly changed when a vision entered the bar. She looked out of place in that dump. She had to have been forced there against her will, being as proper and beautiful as she was. Her long, jet-black hair was shiny and well-kept. Her deep brown eyes were tastefully framed with sensible makeup, accentuating her mysterious gaze, as if she knew a dark secret. Whatever she wore that night, I don't remember exactly. It fit well, showing off her fit form and her slim limbs. She was perfectly short, the kind of short that makes you feel big enough to protect her with ease. The kind of mistress that makes you wonder, just who is this dream? And you're so caught up in intimately eyeing her that you fail to notice your friend had already gotten up from the table to move in for the kill. So, instead of me being the gentleman lover of this tale, I stayed in the corner booth, nursing my drink, watching Hughes take the reins and charm this dream girl, dutifully charming her with his strange allure and making her ignore the clumsiness of his drink and the unkempt nature of his being. I watched them get closer and even begin to dance to the lull from the tacky jukebox. Even as they speak softly, I overhear her name, Adeline, a name only parents of wealth and stature would give. So a perfect rich girl, poor boy match. How quaint to be slumming in this age. Hughes and his belle left the bar, arm in arm, to his apartment just a short walk away, no doubt. I finished my remaining drink, slapped a couple bills on the counter, and followed suit a few moments later. The moon reflecting on the darkened windows of the buildings lining the road provided a pleasing sight as I waited for my cab back to my apartment, alone. A nice change compared to having to lug a heavy man a few blocks away because he can't properly walk from drunkenness. I remember flopping on my sofa as soon as I got home and falling dead asleep with strange dreams. In the dream, I had found a dead man I had never seen before in my life. His blood pooled around his lifeless body and had stained my fingertips. An ominous voice pounded in my head. Look at what you've done, Maxwell. Notice it. Realize what you've done, murderer. Filth. That voice haunted me all night. When I woke, the sun was setting in the sky and the stream of light irritated my eyes. Only then did I realize that during the excitement of the previous evening, Hughes and I had switched jackets. As much as I could appreciate the pit sweat stains and loose threads of an otherwise sturdy formal jacket, I would much prefer my own, so I went to Hughes' apartment. The voice from my dream kept playing over and over in my head. I'd become on edge from these intrusive thoughts on the way over. This paranoia didn't cede, it worsened at the sight of a busted door to Hughes' place. Maple Street wasn't known for being the greatest place to live, but I had never feared for Hughes' safety until that point, so his apartment being broken into was a shock to say the least. My curiosity got the best of me, and I entered through the splintered door. The shades were drawn, and the glow of the lamp made the shadows stand tall, towering over me. Through the darkness, it was obvious the place had been sacked. Papers all over the floor, furniture toppled, pillows and linens torn to shreds. I sat down on a weather-beaten chair after setting it straight and held my head in my hands. What had happened to Hughes? Who would do this? Ironically, while hanging my head in confusion, my eyes fell upon my jacket, the reason I was in this scene, crumpled up on the floor nearby. I picked up the black fabric and a mysterious envelope fell from it. It was a sealed letter addressed to me. Come to trolley, train, station, 34 Maple, alone, or you will never see them again. Signed, the Devil of Maple Street. A threatening note. Them. Did that mean he had the girl from the previous night as well, I thought. A kidnapping. This was getting very serious very quickly. I knew I had to prepare for the worst. Fortunately, I had been to Hughes' apartment often enough to know where he kept most of his things, including his precious Colt 45 in the bottom drawer of his dresser, underneath an old dress shirt that was too clean to have ever been worn. Securing it in the back of my belt loop and putting on my reacquired jacket, I exited the apartment and made my way down the street towards the train station. As if anticipating the fear I felt, the temperature had dropped unseasonably cold. But I had to conquer this fear. I had to rescue my friend, and whoever this devil of Maple Street was, he had to pay. When I arrived at the station, keeping my hand on the hilt of the Colt, I ascended the stairs to the seemingly empty platform and cautiously yelled out, "Anyone here? I got your message." Only the echo of my own voice answered. The only other noises were the blowing newspapers flapping in the light breeze, the crackling of the incandescent light bulbs in the overhead lamps, and the abandoned litter rolling about. My concentration was broken by a stream of red light coming from below the metal doorway of a maintenance entrance. Carefully, making sure there was no security system to interfere, I turned the knob and entered the eerie red-lit tunnels. The voice that had been whispering hatred in my head was slowly being stifled by my own thoughts, imagining the worst-case scenarios of what would happen to me, Hughes, and Adeline. One didn't simply pick the devil as a pseudonym on a whim. What kind of person was this maniac? Had he committed other crimes? Why had I never heard of him until this point? Obliviously, I stumbled upon a hatch in the side of the brick walls. The handle reflected brightly in the dim light, and I could hear muffled crying from it. This was it. Pulling out the gun, aiming forward, I opened the hatch and entered. A cracking noise came from underfoot. Looking down, I was horrified to find bits of bone and other bodily remains in various states of decomposition. It sent me sprawling against the nearby wall. "He's here," I heard a woman's voice say from above. Adeline. She was in an iron cage, her legs in shackles, and looking beaten and broken. Her hand was resting on a slump of a man at her feet. Hughes. Who's here?" I asked. "How can I get you down? Is Hughes all right?" "So, you've finally arrived." The voice that had been haunting me since the night before. I couldn't find the source. Was it still in my head? "We're going to play a little game of priorities. One of you must stay and endure whatever schemes I have concocting, and I promise not to come after the others. If you fail to choose within 2 minutes, you will all die, starting now." The voice laughed and disappeared as soon as it had appeared. The cage lowered and its door swung open. Reacting without thinking, I shot the shackles that bound them and helped Hughes to his feet. "So how are we going to get out of here?" I said hurriedly. Hughes looked at me and sadly and said, "I'm sorry." In that moment, I didn't realize the betrayal that I was bound for. I thought only of how we could all escape this hellish place. I didn't expect to be hit over the head and have the gun taken from me, while one of my dearest friends would abandon me for some girl he met the night before and choose to let me die, saving his own hide. All the time we spent together, all the times I helped his drunk-ass home, none of it mattered? Did he just take advantage of my hospitality, my generosity? All the wealth in the world that couldn't buy the personality of his, and it turns out to be worthless and inconsiderate. Merely a mask of a deeply flawed, immoral man. Much like the masked figure that forced me into the iron prison Hughes had just escaped. In the tunnels below Maple Street is where I would meet my demise. The sun would rise, the moon would set, and eventually my body would cease to exist. My humanity was lost long before that point. The devil took his dues from the downtrodden.
Love and attractions run deep. Sometimes a man will leave behind his friends when placed in a perilous situation for a partner. Sometimes we get betrayed by those we believe are close. Keep your friends close, and your enemies closer, they say. But here, on Maple Street, the devil is neither. Stay tuned and enter the archives.